Hey, I'm Pastor Josh, and this is the weekly update for Redeeming Grace Church. It is December 15th of 2020. It's actually a Tuesday, so I'm getting this out a day later. I'm here at the Ministry Center. It is 5:45. I'm about to meet with some guys and start studying through the book of Ecclesiastes. So if you're a guy who would like to get up early and drink some coffee and have some good fellowship with some brothers over the edifying book of Ecclesiastes, it actually is, even though it kind of takes you through the depths first. We would love to have you on Tuesday mornings here at the Ministry Center, 140 North Street, and just dig through what the meaning of life is all about and through the eyes of Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes. So we'd love to have you if you are interested in coming. Also, some other things coming up is that if you're a covenant member of Redeeming Grace Church, we have a very significant family meeting this Sunday night, December 20th. Planning to have it at 5 p.m. if we have some people step up and help provide a meal. If not, it will probably start at 5:30. We'll kind of see. I'll keep you posted on that. But we're going to do some really big, important evaluation on ministries that will continue from 2020 into 2021. And so if you're not a member and all of a sudden you start coming in January and things look different, that's because in our members meeting, we kind of reorganized and prioritized what ministries are going to be happening in 2021. So a really, really important meeting for us, and I hope that you can be there. And then also we've got some important things to vote on for funding and some other discussions to have as well. So if you're a covenant member of Redeeming Grace Church, then you share in the authority of the church and bear some of the responsibility of how we go about our ministry. And so we have an important exercise of those functions this Sunday night. Next week is Christmas Eve, and we're not doing our own Christmas Eve service this year. We're going to do a joint service together with South Canyon Baptist Church, our sending church. And so those times will be at 3 and 5 p.m. Those will be identical services. And so pick one that works best for you. The reason that they're doing two this year is just to make sure that there's plenty of room for people to spread out and invite people, and just to kind of take everything into consideration. So would encourage you that to come join with the combined Redeeming Grace South Canyon family on Christmas Eve, either at 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. There is a link in the email that you likely received this from, or you can find it somewhere on our website or South Canyon's website. They would like people to register if they're planning to come, just so they can get some sense of what to expect and how to make sure that they're handling everything safely and appropriately and in a way that's respectful of as many people as possible. Also, in 2 weeks is the cross-conference simulcast. I think that is the 29th and 30th. If you are interested in being a part of that, it's a 2-day thing. It's like an afternoon and evening both days. And even if you can only come to part of it, it's really designed to inflame and train us for international missions and what part we play in that. It's geared toward 18 to 25-year-olds, but really it's open to anybody. And it's one of my favorite conferences that I typically go to. So I highly, highly commend it to you. You will be stirred, and you will feel the pull to move to Turkey or Afghanistan or something. Like when you hear about the heart of God for the nations and what he has done to provide it, it's going to be hard for you to rationalize not going all in on it. So it will stir your soul and will be excellent. So I want to just take you into my world for just a few minutes. 2 Timothy is a book that I have great affinity for. I made it through the crucible of Dr. Ben Aubrey's preaching class in seminary through the first 2 chapters of 2 Timothy. And so I have a great affection for it. It's Paul's last letter, and it is written to Timothy to encourage him in what has been a very difficult ministry for him. And I don't consider myself to have difficult ministry, but I feel all the things that Timothy feels quite regularly on my own level. And so I find this to be a regular encouragement to my soul about what ministry is meant to be. And so I'm just going to bring you into my world a little bit, and maybe there will be kind of a residual application for you, an encouragement for you. But 2 Timothy 2, 4 through 7, what Paul does to encourage Timothy to stay the course, to not quit on pastoral ministry. He gives these 3 analogies of a soldier, of a farmer, and of a runner. And so Yeah, a hardworking, a champion athlete. You're particularly thinking of like a track runner. So here's what he says, actually starting in verse 3. Share in suffering as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No soldier gets entangled in civilian pursuits, since his aim is to please the one who enlisted him. And so the idea is that, hey, for the pastor, and I think this is true for the Christian, but particularly for the pastor as he leads the mission of God and the church, is this idea of don't get entangled in civilian pursuits. The idea being is that there's going to be a natural tendency in the church among its members, a natural tendency in your own heart as a pastor, dear Timothy, to begin to want to pursue comfort and convenience. But remember, you were enlisted into a spiritual war. And so that's important for me to remember that, and for all of us, is that if you're bringing things or I'm desiring things that are really for my own comfort and preference, but they're not advancing the spiritual mission, I'm not called into service for comfort. I'm not called in here to try to make people happy. I'm called to be a soldier who pleases the one who enlisted me, which means this is what Christ wants to do. We're in a spiritual war. He's the general. He's enlisted me. And so anything in my own heart or requests or suggestions or ideas or preferences from other people, unless it advances the spiritual mission, I am not to consider it. So it's good for me to remember that I'm in a spiritual war, not on a luxury cruise. And my master, my superior expects me to perform in advance of his mission, not for my own comfort. So no soldier gets entangled in civilian pursuit, since his aim is to please the one who has enlisted him. Secondly, he goes on to, an athlete is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. And the idea there is of a track runner who's running the race. And the idea is that if he gets out of his lane, he's going to be disqualified, and he wants to win. So he is going all in, he's training, he's done all of this preparation, and now he's running the race, and he better stay in his lane. He better stay in his lane or he's going to be disqualified. And so for me, what he's saying to Timothy is that you are not responsible for everything, and you have to stay laser focused on your responsibility, and you need to go at it with tremendous tenacity. You stay in your lane, and you take your training, and you go hard for the finish line, or you're not going to get the crown. So this idea of singular focus, both for the soldier and the runner. And then lastly, verse 6, it is the hardworking farmer who ought to have the first share of the crops. And so then he uses this analogy of a farmer. And the idea is that it's long, hard work with not a lot of payoff. Your payoff is at the end, it's at the harvest. There is such a temptation in pastoral ministry, in my own heart, in the church, expectations of people to want things quickly. I thought we would have this by now. I thought I wouldn't have to serve like this now. And the idea is that as the pastor, and I think really for all of us, is to have the hardworking farmer, like we are laboring, we're putting seed in the ground, we're laboring every day in the hot sun. Sometimes the weather's cooperative, sometimes it's not. And we don't see a harvest till way down the line. So the idea of patient, slow tending of the field, working hard every day without a payoff, and just going hard at this. And so that idea of patient, slow labor, diligent, hardworking farmer is at the heart of my ministry, and really at the heart of what God is doing with his church. There is a temptation, Zach Eswine talks about this in The Imperfect Pastor, there's a tendency in the church today to want big things, famous and fast. And so that's what we want. We want our churches to grow really big, really fast. We want to get a lot of credit in the world for that. We want to be famous for it. And it better happen quickly. It better happen right now. Like, I've been coming to this church for a month and it's not 1,000 people yet. And he says that is so counter to the way Jesus went about things. Hey, my video got disrupted there for just a minute, and then the guys showed up for our Bible study, and so there's kind of a weird transition right here. But I do want to close out my thought. It's now 8:50, and so that was 3 hours ago that I began this video. But I do want to close out, since it kind of ended abruptly. I want to close this out, and just I would ask for your help in this. That part of my calling is to be the soldier who's not looking for comfort, but is willing to endure suffering for the sake of the master. For the sake of the general, for the one that has enlisted us. So that's my calling, and I need your help in that. I need you to make sure that that you are helping me to stay focused, not on what's convenient and comfortable, not on people's preferences, but enduring suffering, even going after what is uncomfortable, what is not popular,
for the sake of pleasing Jesus Christ. Let's be the kind of church that endures suffering and discomfort because we're on a mission. We're not here to advance our own agenda. We're not here to try to find the easiest, most comfortable way through Christianity. We are engaging in suffering because we have a mission from our commander. Help me do that, and may we help one another do the same. Help me to be the athlete that pursues the crown, that pursues the prize, that stays in my lane. There's a lot of temptations to want to do a lot of different things in pastoral ministry. There's a lot of temptations because I really do want to help people, but I am called to a very narrow ministry of the ministry of the word and prayer and equipping the saints to do the work of ministry. I have all the responsibilities of a Christian, but then I also have this narrow focus of equipping the saints with the word for the work of ministry. And there's such a temptation to want to lead all kinds of ministries and activities and try to please all these people, but I will be disqualified if I don't stay in the lane of my calling, my biblical calling before the Lord. And the same is true of our church. Our church could be very tempted to start engaging in political things or, all these different things that might in and of themselves be okay and good, but they're not our lane. It's not what God has called us to be and to do. And so will you help me make sure that I stay in my lane, that I stick to the calling that I have before the Lord, that I not step out and try to run in someone else's lane. And may we as a church be the same. May we be singularly focused. May we stay within the boundary lines of the lane that God has given us because we want the crown of life. We do not want to be disqualified. I do not want to be disqualified. Let's help one another by making sure we stay focused in so that we might win the prize. And then lastly, help me to be the hardworking farmer. The farmer who is willing to just continually, day after day, trust that the seed is going to come up. And even if we don't see it quickly, and even though there's different seasons and there's pestilence and all these different things that can work against the farmer, to continue to, with joy, trust that the seed is going to work, that watering that seed, planting that seed, tending that seed, trying to protect that seed, that it is going to bring a harvest, even if it's not quick. So help me, as someone who can tend to be impatient, to remember and to trust that the gospel is going to work, that the preaching of God's word, that prayer, that tending to the souls of people is gonna work, and we don't have to try to help it. We don't have to get impatient. We don't have to try to find shortcuts or a variety of different programs or gimmicks to try to make the seed grow. Help me to be the hardworking farmer that continues to do the unseen, faithful little things that trust the seed, knowing that the harvest is coming towards the end, that it's going to be coming later. And may we be a church that's like that we are willing to do tens of thousands of unseen acts of service that we get no credit for because we know that it's going to grow, it's going to come. And even though there's seasons and difficulties that come, may we be the patient, hardworking farmer kind of church. So I need your help in that regard to make sure that you help me not be tempted to fall into things that would be civilian pursuits that don't please the master, that might cause us to run outside of our lane and be disqualified, and to be impatient with the work of God, that we thought this was going to happen a little bit faster. Help me to be the soldier. Help me to be the athlete. Help me to be the farmer. And may that be true of us as well. What's true of the pastor, I think, is also true of all the Christians. May we be a church that is laser focused, not on comfort and preference and the way we want things, but actively endures suffering because we're in a spiritual war and we want to please our master. May we be disciplined to use all of our training, all of our conditioning to run as hard as we can towards the finish line. And may we be careful not to get outside of our lane, not to be a church that we're not designed to be, not to try to be more mature as a church, more developed as a church, more ministries as a church than we really are. Let us stay in our lane. Let us run our race. Let us be our part of the body and not be disqualified. And then lastly, let us be the patient, hardworking farmers who just seem to do the same thing over and over, not seeing any change, but knowing harvest is coming, the seed's going to work, the gospel's going to work, prayer's going to work, tending to the souls of people is going to work. And whether we see the harvest in the time frame that we want or not, there will be a harvest and we'll get to share in the first fruits of it. Let's be that kind of church. Help me to be that kind of pastor. I need your help. I need you to help one another in that, and may we be this kind of church. So I hope that encourages you. to kind of come into my world a little bit, because it really does affect you, and it really does affect Redeeming Grace Church. So thanks for gaming this out with me. Thanks for digging into this with me. I hope it's an encouragement to you, and I hope you'll think deeply about what this looks like in these three metaphors for you to help me fulfill the ministries God's given me, so that I might also lead you to be the kind of Christian, and for us to be the kind of church that is like this, that is the good soldier, the champion athlete, the faithful, hardworking farmer. We want the reward, we want the pleasure of our King, and we want fruitfulness in ministry, and this is the biblical way to go about that. So God bless you. Let me know if there's some way that I can encourage you, and we'll catch you next week.